Hello, everybody. It's Stephanie and David from News Talk. A very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us for fresh 3 stories making headlines. Hello, David.
Hi, Stephanie. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, as always, we've got 3 hot stories in the news, and we're going to talk a bit about them. And we definitely, please, want your comments, your opinions, your questions, anything.
Exactly. Facts. Anything you know about these stories. Have you heard about them before? Can you provide us with some extra information? And as always, we've tried to choose 3 very different topics. Some topics a bit more controversial than others, but they're making, as I said, making headlines around the world. So really important to be able to have the vocabulary to talk about them. Shall we find out what they are, David?
Indeed. So the first story we're going to be looking at is about teachers and children. And the first question we're asking is, how will teachers in Tennessee, the state of Tennessee in the United States, soon be able to protect their students? Lots of clues in the questions. We think you might know the answer, but it's a big debate, this one.
Yeah, very interesting, this topic. And of course, different all around the world, what people think about this. So, yes, that's story number 1. Story number 2, something completely different. We're talking about drone deliveries. So, the question is, how many? So, I want a number here. How many deliveries does Zipline drone delivery company plan to make every day?
And again, really interesting topic this. What do you feel about, using drones for delivery? Does it happen in your country? Have you any experience of this? And then the final one, and this is definitely where we're going to be asking lots of questions, and we want your answers, is how often do we check our phones? And how much time do we spend on them every day? So please tell us about you. And we've got a little mini quiz at the end, some yes no questions about how much and when you use your phones, and when it is appropriate and when not.
I feel like there's going to be some scary numbers there, David, that might shock us as to how often we
Sure.
are using our phones. But in any case, we're kicking off with story number 1. A very serious topic. This we're talking about America, specifically the state of Tennessee. And the question we're asking is, how will teachers in Tennessee soon be able to protect their students? Any ideas? What do you think about this?
Yeah, what's the topic we are talking about? It's a bit of a tragic one, and it's been a lot in the news for the wrong reasons. Any ideas, anybody?
A couple of people saying hello, so let's welcome Ina and Kayor as well. Welcome to News Talk. So yeah, what do we think about this? This does follow, as David said, this follows a very tragic situation in Nashville, which of course is in the same state as Tennessee, where 3 students and 3 teachers died. So following on from this, the state has decided to pass legislature to try to make schools safer for those working and, of course, for the students in the schools. Hello, Lara. But how do they intend to do this? That's what we want to know.
Well, and for some statistics which are not very pleasant to learn about, but apparently every day in the United States of America, 12 children die from gun violence. 12 children, and apparently another 32 are shot and injured. So, could you imagine the impact on their children, their families, and this on a daily basis?
Well, I think, that number is absolutely incredible because we're not talking about 12 in a year. We're talking about 12 in a day.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? And again, guns are apparently the leading cause of death among American children and teenagers. So 1 out of every 10 gun deaths are aged 19 or younger. I mean, it's just amazing that for us in the UK to even think about these numbers.
And of course, it is quite, I mean, it is quite country dependent, isn't it, David? Because as you mentioned there, in the UK, we don't have the same attitude, the same access to guns that they have in America. So I think for us living in the United Kingdom, it is completely incredible, this idea of access to loaded weapons.
I think that's a really interesting point, again, because it would be virtually impossible in our country for a child to get access to a gun that is loaded or unlocked and ready to use. Almost absolutely impossible. Whereas apparently in the US, 4.6 million American children are in a home where one gun at least is ready, is loaded and ready to fire.
I mean, incredible. I'm asking the question, I've just typed in the chat. What are the gun laws in your country? So we've got two extremes here. We've got the US versus the UK. I mean, very, very different attitudes and very, very different laws here. So I'd be very interested to find out what happens in your country. Do you know what the laws are? Do people have access to guns that they're allowed to keep in their homes?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and of course, the argument for this new law that's being approved is of course that it will act as a deterrent, and that's the logic behind that. I'm not so sure.
Oh, I think we might have to reveal what the answer is to this to continue with the topic. Do you think, David? So, of
Yes.
course, we're talking about how are teachers going to keep students and staff safe, and the answer is that certain members of staff will be allowed to carry a concealed weapon, a concealed gun in schools.
So the idea, I think, is that nobody knows which teachers will be carrying the concealed handgun.
Exactly. So the staff member that wishes to carry a concealed weapon has to, of course, have training, have background checks, and be approved. But once they are, they will be licensed to carry this concealed weapon. But as David said, other members of staff, students, parents will not know which teachers do have access to this weapon.
Hi, Cara, from me and my ma. Nice to see you. So, one of the senators who is proposing this legislation says we are not trying to shoot a student, but protect a student from an active shooter whose only purpose is to get in that school and kill people. So, it's this idea of acting as a deterrent to protect the children on the premises.
And it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because, of course, shootings in schools, unfortunately, is something that has happened quite frequently in America. So I think it's quite natural that they would be thinking, what can we do? How can we deter people who wish to carry out this kind of violence from coming in and, in essence, shooting people dead?
Yeah, and I think it shows the difference between the two societies, British society and American society. In British society, it's increasingly no guns. Nobody has guns, and even most of our police officers do not carry a gun. Whereas in the US, it's more right. It's your right to carry a gun, and it's your right to protect yourself. So everybody should be entitled, allowed to carry a gun if they wish to.
Exactly. And as David said, it's that idea of a constitutional right. It's something that everybody in America has the right to do, but very different attitude here. Yusuf just typing in his country, if you don't have a license, you're not allowed. There is a strict law and you have to be over 18.
Right. I mean, and I think in this country you have to register your gun and you get an inspection, I think, from the police or somebody else to make sure it is absolutely safe and secure.
But it's interesting, the countries with the highest gun ownership. I mean, obviously, we would expect America to be number one, but then some of the others in the top 10, a bit of a surprise. I mean, for example, Finland makes
Oh,
the
I
top.
wouldn't know
Well,
that.
no, surprising. Cyprus also in the top
Oh,
10. Some surprising countries in there, and again, sort of reflecting that idea that it is a very cultural topic as well. I think.
yeah, but Possibly, are we talking about sport use, or hunting as an
Doesn't say.
activity?
Well, it
Or
says it's not rifles, it's
yeah.
small handgun
Oh,
ownership.
okay, okay, okay.
What they're using them for, I don't know, David.
Shall we look at the vocab?
Let's have a look at some vocabulary. And did you notice us using it? As always, really important to think about this vocabulary in context. First, of course, the answer. Tennessee approves concealed handguns for school staff.
So, and concealed means where it's kept hidden or where it cannot easily be seen. So it's this idea of hiding it away.
The second word David used, premises. Now, premise is a very useful word because it's quite generic. We can use it for many different situations. It literally means the land and buildings owned by someone. And we use it especially if we're talking about a company or an organization.
And then finally, as we said right at the beginning, it's acting. The idea is to act as a deterrent. The verb to deter, and a deterrent is something that makes somebody less likely to do something.
Again, really useful vocabulary there. Moving on then to story number 2. So we're talking about drones, we're talking about deliveries, and specifically we're talking about drone delivery. The question is how many? So the answer will be a number, but interesting topic this. What do we think about drone delivery?
It is, yeah, and really quite surprising. I mean, I don't know, has anybody experienced any drone delivery in their country? Have you had any experience, Stephanie, of having? No?
No. But it's interesting because when I think about drone delivery, when I was reading about this story, the first image I had was delivering things like products or food. I was thinking of non-essential items, but I found it really interesting when I dug a bit deeper, this idea that this company was also using it for like essential medical supplies, which again I think puts a whole different slant on the topic.
I think that makes it really exciting as well,
Mm,
indeed, and very interesting. So this it's Zipline is what they call an autonomous delivery drone company. It's a startup company, but it's already gone absolutely massive with deliveries on four different continents, and it apparently ranges from hospitals, as Stephanie was saying, where I think it's really, really exciting. That idea of getting, urgent medical supplies very quickly into hospitals is
exactly.
wonderful.
Exactly, and I think that's perhaps the aspect that a lot of us hadn't considered. But yet, if you think of countries where it's very difficult to transport things, perhaps the infrastructure just isn't there, then having something like a drone. I mean, there was one example. I think in Ghana, they were transporting IV fluid from a distribution center to a local health facility. And it would have taken them, double, triple the amount of time. And this really facilitates the process.
Oh, wonderful! And Youssef is agreeing with. So in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, they have one drone that using a US drone delivery for medical
Bit of a
purposes.
tongue twister there.
Yeah, which I didn't do very well. But apparently, the company says the three areas where the incentive really makes the most sense to start using these drones even more is, as Stephanie says, healthcare, quick commerce, which is, I suppose, that's like the Amazon and delivering
Mm.
goods and service goods, and food. And the potential for food, of course, is huge as well.
They reckon that it's 10 times faster, it's cheaper. And of course, on the other side of the coin, they can also extend the radius of the potential customers because people who perhaps can't physically get to a place, if you're talking about a drone delivery, you're tripling the service radius. So again, giving more access to customers.
And of course, they can argue, or their one of their arguments, especially relevant today, is that these drones are zero emission, so they are far, far better for the environment than traditional delivery services.
I have to say, it's one of these interesting stories where I think my opinion changed, because initially I was thinking, oh, just delivering Amazon type stuff that people don't really need. But when you think about the medical side of things, I think it does put a whole different aspect, a different slant on things.
Absolutely. And of course, it's attracted lots and lots of interest from investors. I think they've raised something like 500 million
Yes.
already. Amazing, amazing. Shall we give the answer?
Let's have a look. Yes, the answer. So we were looking for a number, and it's a very impressive number, isn't it? So let's go back to our slide. So how many deliveries does the company plan to make? Well, it has currently made 1 million deliveries, but in the future, the goal is to do 1 million a day. It's a very ambitious goal there.
I mean, it just sounds mind-boggling, doesn't it? I mean, gosh, these numbers that we bring out. Um, oh, that's wonderful. So, Ina saying actually it's a different type of thing in Tallinn in Estonia. There are small robots that deliver things. You can see them on the pavement. Oh, wow! I haven't.
Fascinating.
Yeah, we haven't had that experience here.
Not in my part of the country, no.
No.
Maybe
Well,
in some parts of London, I don't know. So you start in London and then sort of spread out to the
I haven't seen anything in London either. I think we've all got to go on a field visit to Tallinn
to
and
Tallinn.
have a look. So, so we were saying, right? So the answer, as Stephanie says, a million was the answer. A million deliveries already, and up to 1 million deliveries a day.
A day. Very ambitious.
Yeah, and as we said, we called the company, it was an autonomous delivery company, drone delivery company. An autonomous means to be able to operate without being controlled directly by humans.
Our second word, an incentive. Now, if you have an incentive, it's something that encourages a person to do something. So, all of you joining us today, you've got incentive, something that motivates you to learn English. That's an incentive.
Indeed. And Stephanie also mentioned when we were talking about how advantageous this system could be about the radius. And the radius is the distance from a central point.
Absolutely. Let's move on then to our final story. And I think this is the story where we'll have lots to share. Really interested to know what people think about this. Story number 3. How often? So, how often, think about yourself. How often do you think you check your phone? That's a tricky one. Perhaps the easier one to answer is, any idea how much time you spend every day on your phone? These are the questions for story number 3.
Yeah, because this is as a result of a survey that's been recently published, and of course the survey set in America, so it's talking about Americans' usage and how much time people spend on their mobile phone. So in this context, we're really talking about how much you'll use your mobile phone in social environments rather than, like if you're working on a computer for work.
Exactly. And I mean, it's really interesting when you start reading about this, isn't it? I mean, apparently the smartphone, or the sound of the smartphone, I should say, is a highly attractive stimuli for us. So just having it near us is a distraction. When it beeps, it's equivalent to somebody calling your name, apparently.
Really? I'm not sure if I feel that. I don't feel that relationship with my phone. I don't. I'm very happy to switch it off, actually.
Well, again, and not wanting this to come out wrong, but there are different generations, aren't there? And different generations perhaps have different attitudes towards phone. There's those of us, and of course I'm including myself in this category, David, that grew up without a phone.
Yes,
We remember life pre-phones, don't we?
yes. So anybody, how much time do you think you spend looking, scrolling, engaging, or whatever with your mobile phone every day. I wonder if anybody's got any ideas. Do you know how much time you would spend, Stephanie?
I don't know, but I think it's probably more than I think, because it's one of those things you find. I go to my phone because I don't know, I've had an alert or something, and then I do often get distracted with it and end up checking something else. And it's very easy for 20 minutes to pass, where I've actually only gone in to look at an email, for example.
But I think it tells you, your phone also tells you, doesn't it, as well,
You
how much
can have
screen.
that, yeah, you can have it an alert. So every week it tells you your weekly usage, and it tells you if that's more or less than the week before. And I think the idea is to try to encourage you to getting into best practice, good habits, so that you can reduce your time, your screen time.
Really, really. And I think it is difficult, as you're saying, to know exactly how much time, because subconsciously you probably look at it and that without realizing you are looking at it because it's there. Yusuf spends a lot of time on his phone.
I mean, I think I'm pretty good, but I still think I would spend more time than I imagine I do. I do think, when we read these articles and they talk about best practice, and there's things like if you're trying to concentrate, put your phone in another room. I definitely do that. I have it on silent quite frequently, so I'm not distracted by buzzing or an alert and then thinking, oh, who is that? Because I think that's a big part of it, isn't it? There's that fear of missing out. You've got to be constantly checking what's happening. Has someone posted something? Am I missing out? It's that FOMO.
Yes, yes. And of course, what in this report or what we're reading is that people now give tips, give advice on digital mindfulness. Ooh, important concept these days in a technology-driven world. So rather than trying to limit the habit, what you should be doing apparently is spending more time outdoors, moving your body, meeting with friends and family.
And I like that. I like the fact that they've put a positive twist on it. So they're not saying don't look at your phone. They're saying instead of thinking about it negatively, try to have more positive things like meeting up with friends or family, being outside. And I think that's a really good tip.
I do, yes, yes. I don't know. I think, especially for children, I mean that's possibly my biggest concern is how much children use and depend on their mobiles.
I think that especially for teenagers, I think it's a big issue. I think there's that FOMO, that fear of missing out. Most teenagers are on some form of social media, and there is that sort of that's how they're communicating. And I think in this country, certainly, you look at teenagers and they're sort of the phone is almost permanently attached to their hand, because that's how they communicate with their friends.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wonder if anybody's got any ideas. For example, at what age should a child be given access to a mobile phone? Should be able to use a mobile phone? I think many adults will say, "Oh, it's important that my child has a phone in case they need to contact me in an emergency or something happens." But at what age is that right? And should you restrict the access?
I think in this country, a lot of parents sort of think, well, there's a definite shift when your child leaves junior school and perhaps goes to a secondary school, which is not in their local village. Often they're traveling a further distance. And I think there's that idea that when they're traveling independently on public transport, that then is a good time to start showing them how to use a phone.
Agree. That whole security issue is so important today, isn't it?
I mean, interestingly, though, we managed just fine traveling
Well,
on public transport without mobile phones, but it's a different era now, isn't it?
I agree. I agree. Um, so shall we ask some?
Yes, David's got a very interesting mini quiz. So yeah, David, if you ask the question, I can type in and let people tell
Yes,
us what they
please.
think.
So number one, is it okay? Do you think it is okay to call or send messages to other people when you are out with some friends? So you're sitting in in the cafe. Is it okay to call or send messages to other people, or should you really turn your phone off when you're with them? What would you do, Stephanie?
I think it's not okay. I think if I'm with a friend, I'm spending time with that friend. I don't think I would need to call or send messages to somebody else. If I was expecting an important call, I would say to that friend, you know, I might have to take a call. I'm really sorry. But I certainly wouldn't be just sending unimportant messages. I think if you're with someone, my point is you should be with that person.
I totally agree. I would definitely agree with that one.
And Vitali, you agree as well. And Ina, exactly. We're all on the
Good,
same page here.
good, good. Well, a related question actually is it okay to have your phone on the table and answer calls or messages when you are in a restaurant? So you're out with your family or your friends. Would you have your phone on the table with you, or should it be away? And would you text or answer a call during the meal? Again, I'm quite clear.
I'm very clear. I don't think it's okay to even have your phone on the table.
I, I, I agree.
I,
Let
I,
alone answer.
I
But
mean, it's unbelievable. I would never have my phone on a table if I was out for dinner with family, with friends. I just would never do it.
I agree. But have you not had the experience when you go into a restaurant and you look around and so many people have the phones on the table, or they're actually on the phone? They are texting or speaking to somebody on the phone when they're with other people.
I mean, I've had it when I'm in that group, and I know how I feel. I feel like, well, pretty unimportant if somebody's having to text or look at their phone and they're supposed to be having dinner with me. I don't think it makes the other person feel particularly great, does it?
Absolutely. Oh, did you say anything? Would you say anything to them?
I haven't, but I probably should. I mean, it's an awkward thing, isn't it? Because I feel like if they think it's okay and I think it's not, and they're clearly doing it anyway,
I know it's very
bit
it's a
tricky.
tricky one, isn't it? It's a
It's a bit of a social, tricky, awkward social situation.
Yes, yes. Well, and another one, and this is possibly one of my pet hates as well. You can see these questions are slightly loaded, aren't they? So, is it okay to have a personal conversation on the phone when you are traveling on public transport? And I'm sure we've all had that experience when you're sitting on the train and you hear the conversation of somebody in front of you. They're saying, "Oh yeah, I'm on the train. I'll be back." You
It's
know?
how every conversation starts. I'm just on the train.
Yes, yes. And then you end up listening, not because you want to, but you end up listening to their whole conversation. And I think, I don't want to be listening to that.
Just looking at some of the answers that have come through, Lara saying children should not have mobiles before 15. Um, and Yusuf, very interesting fact here. Apparently, there's a unique restaurant in Europe that asks people to take their phones out
Oh,
before entering the meal, and you get a discount on the meal.
oh, nice one. I like that one.
Yusuf says it's not polite. I'm going with no. I mean, I think it's probably quite clear what my views are on mobile phone usage. I don't think I would never have a personal conversation.
Oh, no, no, I agree. I think I'd feel really embarrassed. Why do I want to share, what I'm saying with other people?
It's as Yusuf says, it's completely impolite, isn't it?
It totally is. Totally is. Um, and then again, is it okay? I am giving a hint here. Is it okay to look at your phone when you are in a cinema or at the theatre? So the film's on, and then somebody in front of you is looking at their messages on their phone. Are we happy with that? Is that okay?
Not for me. I mean, you go to the cinema, I want to watch a film. And it's even worse, I think, in a theatre because people are there putting on a performance for you. You know, people are working to entertain you, and the thought of getting a phone out, I think it's just rude. It's disrespectful.
I do, but also it's really irritating because with the phone you tend to get the light, don't you? So you're sitting 10 rows behind somebody and you can see their phone because it's all lit
It's
up.
lit up, it's illuminated, exactly. Lara says, if you can maintain the right volume, it's not a problem. But exactly, Lara, people speak
Okay.
really loudly, don't they?
Yeah, but that's a good point. If you can speak, yes, like you're having a normal conversation on the phone. Yeah,
And
that's
again, depends how busy the train is. I mean, if it's very noisy and lots of people talking, you know, you could get away with it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And my final question was, is it okay to watch movies or listen to music without headphones when you are in a public space? So, you must have had that one when somebody's walking along the phone, they've got the music on and everybody can share their music. Is that okay?
No.
without I just feel like going, why don't you just go and put your
Yeah.
earplugs in?
It's kind of very presumptive that everybody wants to listen to their type of music. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. So Yusuf says there's a protective screen on the market for those people who watch their phone while they are texting that doesn't allow them to see the screen
I've
and
seen these.
what you're doing on the phone. So it protects other people as well, so they don't see what you're doing. Okay,
So if
that's
you're
a
sat next to someone on the tube and they've got their phone out, if you're sitting next to them and you look across, even though the phone's near you, it kind of distorts it so you can't
yeah,
actually see.
right.
So they're still doing it, but yeah, I guess you're not. You can't see what they're doing.
Right. Shall we look at the
There's a big topic, that one. I feel like we could talk about this for ages, couldn't we?
well, everybody knows what we think, Stephanie.
I think we've been quite clear on that, haven't we? Well, let's find out the answer to our very interesting question. So we had two questions here.
Yes,
And did you know the average person checks their phone around 85 times a day and spends an average of 4 hours and 25 minutes? That's every day.
it just seems incredible, doesn't it? And thank you, Laura. I agree totally. You, it's terrible and bad behaviour. Thank you. Definitely not. So yeah, and I think Stephanie, you mentioned about stimuli, the plural, and stimulus, singular. Stimuli are things that produce a reaction in a human, an animal, or a plant.
And of course, now that mobile phone alert sound, that is a very attractive stimulus for people. But we should all be practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness. Now, this is the practice of being aware of your body, but really it's about being present in the moment. So imagine you're going for a walk, you don't take your phone. Instead, you look around, you look at the trees, you listen to the birds. That's mindfulness.
Yeah. And also subconsciously, nice word. And that means as a result of feelings that influence your behavior, even though you are not aware of them. So it's sort of almost like you're not controlling them. They just kind of happen. Like
Really interesting topic.
like this conversation kind of happens almost subconsciously. But thank you for your conscious effort to join us. And we are actually going to have a mini break next Monday. We won't be with you, but we will be back the following week, which will be the
13th.
13th of.
Absolutely. So
So
mark it on your calendar, whether that's electronic or like me, you still write on one on the wall. The 13th of May, we're into May. We will be live, 3 more stories. It's 5 p.m. UK time. So please make a reminder and do please join us on May the 13th. We'd love to see you.
in the meantime, have fun.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.